on Twitter at GMenJ. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Dan Turner. You can follow him at EagleDanFF. What's going on, Dan? You doing all right tonight?
Doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. I lost a bunch of my fantasy leagues, but that's just how the year's going. Otherwise, not bad.
All right. Well, yeah, trust me, I know that as bad as my year's going with all my injuries. But with us tonight, we've got a special guest. You've seen him on NFL Network. He's part of NFL Fantasy and a few other places. Michael F. Florio, I appreciate you joining us tonight, man.
I appreciate you having me, Jay. We go back a couple of years now as like Twitter friends and stuff. So it's great to come on and actually both of us get to experience each other face to face a little bit, interact.
It's the first time we've had a conversation, face to face, and versus I've seen you. I was telling you, I went to dinner the other night with my wife and saw you on NFL Network, and I was like, I kind of sort of know that guy through Twitter. It was pretty cool. But yeah, we had Meanie on last week. We were talking about that, all the guys from the FNTSY days. So
it was fun, and I'm happy to be here talking with you, Jay. I'm happy face to face. I'm happy to meet you, Dan, and talk some fantasy football with you guys.
Yeah, man. So if this is your first time tuning in, we prioritize viewer questions. We send out a tweet on Wednesdays and Thursdays asking for your questions. So if you want us to go a little more in depth than what's in the chat, get them to us early so we have time to look it up. But fire away, ask questions in the chat. We'll get to them. We're going to go ahead and start off with some questions. So the first one we have is from Ken Jablonski. I apologize if I butchered your name. I get that all the time with my last name. He has been on COVID IR and Tannehill plays Indy. Would you pick up Goff, Carr, Mayfield, or Locke over Tannehill this week? And Florio, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't hate Tannehill in this matchup, and if you took Jared Goff's name off of this list, I would say just roll with Ryan Tannehill. But Jared Goff gets Seattle, and a rule that I am following this year, and I think everyone should be, is start your quarterbacks against Seattle. They've allowed the most fantasy points, the most passing yards, the most rushing yards, which I know we don't think of Jared Goff as someone who could, is a runner. But we've seen him when they get near the goal line sneak one in this year. So maybe he can do that again this week. But also, it is just the consistent amount of points Seattle gives up. They've allowed over 20 to every single quarterback except for two, Kirk Cousins and Jimmy G the week he got hurt. But even that week, Nick Mullins scored 18 off the bench. So it is just Seattle is a prime matchup. Go with Goff.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. Dan, what do you think?
I'm just going to go ahead and agree with Mike there. I think, it's just the rule. The Seattle's dead last in terms of going against quarterbacks in terms of fantasy. So it's literally a no-brainer. I mean, the other guys have some decent matchups, but Goff has really good weapons and Seattle is terrible. So, I mean, there's really no other way to put it, really.
I would slightly lean Tannehill, and just because he's played well in some pretty difficult matchups, I would not. If you want to start Goff, by all means, go with it. As good as the matchup is, but Tannehill's entered that territory for me that I'm starting him regardless of the matchup. He's QB 8 on the season in points per game. He's looked great, and A.J. Brown is really, he's jumping into that wide receiver 1 territory. He's got Jonnu Smith, who hasn't performed quite as well with A.J. Brown on the field, but he's still a weapon. Corey Davis is took the Devontae Parker track to finally breaking out after his, a few years. So for me, I slightly lean Tannehill. I could see you going either way and be perfectly fine, with as good as that matchup is against Seattle. Our next question is from Future Professional off of Twitter. Stick with Jonnu Smith this week and his terrible matchup, or take a flyer on Gesicki, Reed, or Graham? Dan, we'll start with you on this one.
I'm going to go Jimmy Graham on this one. In the past 4 weeks, he's had 8, 6, 7, and 6 targets. Foles seems to like going his way, and in the current wasteland that is fantasy tight ends, I think with that kind of target share, you can't ignore. So I would go Jimmy for this week.
What do you think, Florio?
So for me, it comes down to Jonnu versus Jimmy G. I had them back-to-back in my rankings, with Jonnu being just ahead, but I agree with everything Dan said there. The volume has been there for Graham, especially in the red zone and near the end zone. And that's what Jonnu Smith's role kind of is with this team as well. So with both of those two, you're just hoping to get a touchdown, I think. And that would make them probably a tight end one because tight end is so gross right now. I would lean Jonnu, but it's between him and Jimmy Graham for me.
All right. Well, I'm going to go a little different. Both you guys. I'm going to go Gesicki. And even though he's been a disappointment so far, the love of my life, Preston Williams, has just been placed on IR, so he's out this week. So I could definitely see there's going to be more opportunities for him to produce. Jonnu with A.J. Brown in the lineup simply just hasn't been the same. He's been a touchdown-dependent tight end for you with Brown. I got the stats right here. 6 games with Brown. He's got 4 targets a game, 3 receptions, averaging 27 yards and 9 points per game. The 2 games without Brown, it was 5 catches on 7 targets, 73 yards and 18 points per game. So his production literally doubles when A.J. Brown is out of the lineup. So for me, with any of these guys, you're pretty much hoping for a touchdown. One thing I do like about Gesicki is the matchup. The Chargers defense gives up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends, and they've given up 5 touchdowns to tight ends in the last 5 games. So you got a good shot of getting that touchdown that you're looking for when it comes to the tight end position.
I've just been burned by Gesicki.
A lot of people have. I haven't been burned by him yet, so that's why I can deal with it. But yeah, a lot of
people. The one week I sat him was the week he went for nearly 30 points. Yep. And then I got him back in my lineup and watched him put up zeros and like low twos. And I was just
that's how it works.
Yeah. He's back out right now.
Yeah. Also, Jay, I forgot to mention, I to extend my sincere, apologies that Preston Williams is no longer among the fantasy living. Yeah. I know it's still really, really bad, all those 1 catch games he had.
Yeah, hey, if Mike, he likes to razz on me. I'm both a Preston Williams and a LaVisca Chenault truther, so it's been pretty rough here recently. But I still believe in both of them. But it just you can't say it hasn't been pretty.
Preston was the top target with Tua before getting hurt. So.
And
hang your head on that.
Yep, catches a touchdown and then gets that foot injury. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into some of these questions in the chat for the people who decided to join us. T-Bone Smith from Facebook, McKissick or Duke Johnson? Mike, we'll go with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I know McKissick had all those catches last week, and the Lions are a favorable matchup, but I'm still going with Duke Johnson here. As long as it looks like David Johnson isn't going to play this week, you have to monitor that. Hopefully you have both of these guys, and if by some chance David Johnson is active, then you could pivot to McKissick. But if he is inactive, I think the type of volume that Duke Johnson saw last week in David Johnson's absence is just something that J.D. McKissick is not going to be able to replicate, and I'm not expecting, close to 10 catches again. I don't think that is something that you can bank on each week.
Dan, who are you going with in this situation?
I'm also going to take Duke. I think that if David Johnson he was going to be able to play, then I would probably choose McKissick just for the kind of volume. I agree that he's not going to get the 60,000 targets he got last week. But it's pretty much Duke's backfield. There's really no one else that's going to handle the ball there. So for this week, as long as David Johnson's out, I would take Duke.
Yep, and you guys pretty much said it all. I agree with you. If David Johnson's out, I'd go with Duke. If he's not, then I'd go McKissick. Nando from Twitter wants to know: do you start the Colts defense tonight? I think they're at that point. They're regardless of the matchup, you're pretty much going to play them. I would much rather take a chance with as well as they're playing versus, a streamer of somebody that, streamers don't always work out. You look at the matchups and it's usually, more about the other team, but the Colts are one of the best defenses in the league. So I'm definitely willing to roll them out there.
I agree.
Yeah, I think they're fine to play tonight. There's certain streaming defenses that I would still use over them, but they're likely been picked up already off of waiver wire. So I think if you missed out on those top options like the Eagles and those defenses, then the Colts are fine.
Yeah, in Thursday night games, it's either going to be like a 50-51 game or a 9-10 game. So I figure with the Colts have been really good defensively all year, so I'd feel comfortable starting.
Got a question, Anthony from Twitter: Zach Moss or Philip Lindsey this week?
Oh.
Exactly. What do you think, Mike?
I'm pulling up my rankings for this one because I have Zach Moss at 19 and Philip Lindsey at 20. So
Funny how that
back
works.
to back. I do like Zach Moss a little bit more because I feel like his work is safer. Like, I truly believe Zach Moss is now the running back to roster in Buffalo. Like, I've cut Devin Singletary to pick up Zach Moss in the league because they're splitting groundwork. They're splitting a lot of the passing duty. I know there's a lean towards Singletary there, but the goal line work is going to Zach Moss, and that is where I'm not as confident with Philip Lindsey. I love that Lindsey's been running more routes, getting more targets, but when they get near pay dirt, I still think it is going to be Melvin Gordon. I like both of these backs as low-end RB2s this week, but I would go with Zach Moss.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that too. And even though Philip Lindsey's been getting the targets, he's still not doing anything with them. So give me the guy. They're pretty much right around the same area. Like you said, I would give me Zach Moss, who's going to get the end zone touches, the red zone touches. So, Dan, what you think?
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I think that the Moss has a much higher red zone and T upside than Lindsey does. I think that Gordon is more of a threat than Singletary is to take the work away from him. So, I mean, it is tough. Like, even in your rankings, Mike, you have him 19-20. I think it's really close, but I'd lean towards Moss this week.
Got another running back question from Jose from Twitter. Melvin Gordon, Philip Lindsey, Wayne Gallman, or DJ Dallas, pick 2. Oof.
Yikes.
I know. I feel your pain. I've had to deal with that as well this season. I think we all have in some form or fashion. So, Dan, we'll start with you on this one. If you have to pick 2 of those guys, who are you going with?
So I'm not. Our Carson's supposed to play, right? Is he supposed to play?
No,
this
I
week?
don't think he's practiced still.
He's out. All right. So if that holds and Carson doesn't play, then I'd pick DJ Dallas for 1, and then probably Gallman, I guess. I mean,
Yeah, you know that makes you happy to pick the Giants.
I mean, like, you know what? I'm not gonna pick Gallman because he's facing the Eagles, and the Eagles have a decent run defense. So I'll pick Gordon. I'll pick Gordon because of what we mentioned before. I mean, I think that Lindsey has the catches, but Gordon's probably gonna get the goal line work. I mean, I feel bad for this running back situation, but I'd go DJ and Gordon out of those 4.
Mike, what you think?
I agree. Tomorrow is a big day for Chris Carson. Like, at the beginning of the week, Pete Carroll came out and said we will not see him before Friday at the earliest. So tomorrow is a big day. If Chris Carson is out there practicing and it looks like he is going to play, then obviously you don't use DJ Dallas. And in that case, I think I go with both Denver running backs. I know that is pretty gross.
So hard for
Wayne Gallman had his best game against the Giants, but Dan hit it, man. That Eagles defense, that run D especially, it worries me. But if you don't want to go with both Broncos backs, I get it. And then I would go Melvin Gordon and Wayne Gallman.
Yeah, I hate to be an echo chamber, but I pretty much agree with everything you said. If Hyde's out, you definitely go with DJ Dallas. He hasn't been doing that great, but he's getting the volume. He's getting all the work. So if he's the only guy back there, he's getting the goal line touches. He's made his pay dirt both weeks by getting in the end zone. He's not doing it because he's playing well. He's doing it because he's just getting the touches. And Gallman, it's Gallman. Even as a Giants fan, it makes me want to throw up even saying his name. So in a game against the Raiders that you could see a lot of points being scored, I very, very rarely ever do anything like this. But, together, Gordon and Lindsey could have a solid day. So, yeah, you guarantee the goal line work. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. God, that feels so gross to say. We got from W from Twitter, Jonathan Taylor or Mike Davis. That is a good one. So since you are the Jonathan Taylor guy, like we were talking about before we went on the show, Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I am not only the person that said to draft Jonathan Taylor, I am the person who 2 weeks ago was saying trade for him now because he's about to go on a Miles Sanders type run. And I clearly was talking about Jordan Wilkins when I was saying that. I just said Jonathan Taylor's name. But here I would go Mike Davis. I know it's a tough matchup for Mike Davis against the Bucs and their run D, which is the best in the league, but Mike Davis can still rack up, 5, 6 catches, and he could do it so easily. That Panthers running back role, whoever it is going to catch a lot of passes in this game. So I would go with Mike Davis.
Yep. I think Taylor has the higher upside, but you just can't trust him at this point. Every time you think that he's going to be the guy, and I was right there with you, the way that the schedule's lining up, and everybody was just salivating once Marlon Mack went down at the beginning of the season, and the way that first game looked. But who knows what they're doing in Indianapolis. Mike Davis, he's guaranteed the work. He's done it even against tough defenses. So, yeah, I'm going Mike Davis.
I mean, it's really simple math. Jonathan Taylor is part of a 3-headed monster, and Mike Davis isn't. So you just
fair enough.
I mean, the only I guess competition that Davis has for running or catching is maybe Curtis Samuel, but that's about it. I mean, otherwise he has the backfield to himself. And you still have Hines, and we haven't even mentioned Hines in addition to Wilkins, and he's still going to get some catches. So you can't trust JT.
Yeah. Well, we got another question from Nando from Twitter. Colts or the Bears defense? I guess it's a follow-up to his earlier question. I would probably still lean the Colts. What you guys think?
I would go Bears.
Go Bears?
I don't. Dalvin Cook is awesome, but that Vikings passing game has not been scary at all. And the Bears secondary has been playing amazing. Plus, this is a silly reason, but the Colts play tonight, and if they disappoint you, you're going to hate yourself the next couple of days. The Bears play Monday night. You're never going to feel like you're out of it.
There you go. I like that. Trust me, I completely get it. That's why. So I like when I have guys playing on Thursday, but then if they suck, it's like you got to wait till Sunday. Like, man, or if your guy, last week I was so pissed off. I played against MVS last week, and I was so pissed off all week. Like 2 catches for 2 touchdowns, of course.
I was on the opposite. I started Jordan Reed in a couple of leagues and Trent Taylor in a league. So my week was over before it started.
Yeah. And I wound up losing by 3. So MVS catching 2 touchdowns cost me this week.
That's the kind of next level mental analysis we like around here.
Yeah, exactly. You want to have a good weekend, or you want to look forward to something on Monday Night Football. Let's see. So Sean from Twitter is asking, should you start Tannehill? Well, without knowing your other options, I think Tannehill's a fine start. Like I was saying earlier, he's entered that territory for me that you can really start him regardless of the matchup. He's quarterback 8 on the season in points per game. Unless you've got Patrick Mahomes or somebody along those lines. Well, they're off this week, but somebody in that tier, the Kyler Murrays, I'm perfectly fine starting Tannehill. What do you guys think?
Same. I have him a little bit lower than normal. He's my QB 11 this week. It's because respect to the Colts defense, but Ryan Tannehill is a baller, man. And I never thought I would have said that.
Did you ever think you'd say that?
As a Bills fan watching him for 4 years, never. But in our same division, I meant. But since he's come to Tennessee, 14 of his last 15 games, he's thrown multiple passing touchdowns and 17 or more fantasy points in 6 of 8 games this year. He's just super consistent, and that's a good quality in a fantasy quarterback.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Ryan Tannehill and consistent in the same sentence. If you would asked me that 3-4 years ago, say no chance.
Adam Gase, man.
Yeah,
it's the Gase curse.
As we saw with Kalen Balaj last week. Hunter wants to know: should I look to trade Hunt if I also have Chubb? Valuable handcuff, but his value is top 10 basically. Yeah, you're okay starting those 2 guys because they're the Browns are such a run heavy team. But I know we said a few questions ago to start Phillip Lindsey and Gordon, but you limit your upside when you're starting both of those guys because if Chubb goes off, it's highly unlikely Hunt's gonna, and then vice versa. So depending on what you could get, I wouldn't give him away, but yeah, I would definitely look to start shopping Hunt. You can, they do have a fantastic schedule in the fantasy playoffs. They play, let me look at it real quick. I think of the Giants and the Jets. Week 15 they play the Giants, and week 16 they play the Jets. So if you don't trade them, you're fine. I could definitely see both of those guys having really good games against the 2 teams that suck in New York, unlike the Bills. But yeah, I would kind of look for it, but don't force anything. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I agree. I actually would shop both of them, put on my block. I'll trade either one of the Browns running backs and see which one gets you a better haul because there's this perception that Nick Chubb is the starter and Kareem Hunt is the handcuff. And I think people forget that when Nick Chubb was healthy, Kareem Hunt still had more fantasy points. Like, he's a useful piece even when Nick Chubb is there, because Chubb is going to get all the groundwork and Hunt is their pass catching back. And a target is just 3 times more valuable than a carry in PPR leagues. So it leads to more production. And I think that with that value being, well, Chubb's coming back, Hunt is now like a flex option, you're not going to get a great offer for him, but someone may blow you away for a running back coming off a pretty serious knee injury.
Yeah, that's a good call. What do you think, Dan?
I would, and if I was in that situation, I'd probably keep him. I mean, you just got to look at what's going to be available realistically for you to trade him, unless like you're playing in leagues with morons. There's really not going to be anyone of comparative value that you're going to end up getting. Like maybe like Josh Jacobs or James Robinson, perhaps somewhere around there. But otherwise, he's like, even the question said, he's a top 10 guy. So I would find it hard to get the equal value trading him away.
All right. Next question we got is from Lux on Twitter. Jordan Reed or Austin Hooper this week? And it looks like, let me look at the matchups real quick. We've got the Browns play the Texans and the 49ers play the Saints. Florio, what do you think? Are you going to go with in this situation?
I'm going with Austin Hooper. It is a good matchup for Jordan Reed. So I sadly admitted that I picked him up and started him last week. And in those leagues, I didn't bother picking up another tight end because I was like, all right, he gets the Saints this week. Allowed the most fantasy points to ends. Last week, I didn't see it until after the game, but it was announced before the game that he was going to be on a snap count by design because he was coming off of IR, and then they had the full 10 days now to let him really get healthy. So I think Jordan Reed is a strong option this week, but give me Austin Hooper. I think that game can become a pretty high-scoring matchup. The Texans allow a lot of points both on the ground and through the air, and we really saw Austin Hooper starting to ascend before the appendicitis. And then even when in his absence, we saw the tight ends getting used more in Cleveland. So I think the work is a little bit safer for Hooper, but I like both of these guys.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with either one. I'm with you there. And before the appendicitis, his targets were starting to go up. That was a complaint at the beginning of the season. Week 4, he had 7 targets. Week 5, he had 10 targets. Week 6, he had 6 targets. So the targets are there. It's not anybody that, at this point in the season, we've said it a few times. Every year you feel like in the preseason, it's, this is the year, tight end so deep. And then it winds up being Kelsey and 1 or 2 other guys. And then the rest, you're just hoping for a touchdown. So Austin Hooper's getting the targets. He's got a good matchup. The Texans give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. So for me, I'm going to go Hooper as well.
Yeah, you guys both pretty much said everything. I mean, either one is a bad matchup, but the Texans are just a better matchup for tight ends. And with the Cleveland absolute distaste for their other tight ends, I think that Hooper is going to be big on targets this week.
All right, we got from a question from Twitter: Fournette or Rojo this week? That's a good question. We should call up old Arians and see what he has to say about that. Good luck with that one, but it's so hard to say. I would probably lean Fournette. He looked better last game, in my opinion. I would lean there just because it's Bruce Arians and you don't know. It's a coin flip. That's just the eye test for me.
I feel pretty strongly in this sense of Leonard Fournette. Like I like Fournette a lot this week. The Panthers allowed the most receptions per game to running backs. We know who the pass catcher specialist there is now, right? Like he's seeing over 6 targets per game the last 3 weeks. Ronald Jones is down at 3. Leonard Fournette in that 3-week stretch, has played 2/3 of the snaps, while Ronald Jones is down at 30%. And let's just be frank, right? Let's call a spade a spade. Bruce Arians is not a Ronald Jones fan. Since he's taken over, right? Like last year, he was in a committee with other backs. And then they went out and they drafted a rookie running back. They signed Leonard Fournette. And I know he keeps publicly saying it's Ronald Jones' job. It's Ronald Jones' job. It's Ronald Jones' job. When have we seen that outside of the couple of weeks that Leonard Fournette was inactive?
Wait, you're telling me that coach speak isn't all true? They're not telling the media everything that they're thinking?
No, I don't believe they are. And we know that pass catching back is very useful with Tom Brady. He's taken that aspect of his game with him to Tampa Bay. I like Fournette this week, but I will say I also do kind of like Jones because you can run on Carolina. They allow a lot of touchdowns. So I like both of them, but if I had to pick one, it's easily Fournette for me.
What you think, Dan?
I'm going to lean Rojo on this one. I think, Mike, you make some really good points. Fournette's definitely the receiving back there and everything. I think that Carolina is just so bad against the run. I think this is probably the last week you can play Rojo and have him probably either outscore or equal Fournette. I think once this week's over, it's going to be Fournette's job. So just for this week only, I'd lean towards Rojo, but I don't think you can go wrong either way.
Another question from Twitter from KB. Gibson or Edmonds in the flex? Isn't Gibson battling an injury? Is he looking like he's going to play?
Yeah, he practiced in full today.
Yeah, okay. He was a full participant.
Okay. And Kenyon Drake could be coming back as well. So if Gibson's playing,
who?
What's that? Yeah, exactly.
Who?
I'm going to go with Gibson on this one. Even banged up, he's got a good matchup against Detroit. He's Edmonds showed that he's a pass catching back, and everybody was hyping him up the past couple weeks. He has looked better than Kenyon Drake, but I don't think he can handle the full load. So either way, Edmonds is decent, but for me, I'm going to go Gibson. He's got the higher upside. Mike, we'll go with you on this. What you think?
This is one that I have back-to-back again. I have Chase Edmonds at 9, Antonio Gibson at 10. But I do agree with what you said. If Kenyon Drake is playing, then I easily go with Antonio Gibson. The only reason I have Edmonds, because I really like Gibson this week a lot, but the only reason I have Edmonds higher is because a lot of the passing work is going to go to J.D. McKissic, whereas if Drake is out, all of that running back work is going to get funneled through Chase Edmonds. I know it didn't lead to a huge day last week, but I still think his potential is pretty high.
I'm gonna lead Edmonds over Gibson. I think Gibson has a really good matchup, a better matchup than Edmonds does. I just with McKissic there, it's just really hard to trust to see how much of the work he's going to have. And even if Drake does play, I mean, Drake has done practically nothing for the past couple of weeks. So I think that's Edmonds' job is really to lose at this point. So I feel really comfortable playing Edmonds in that matchup over Gibson.
All right. Another question from Nando. Justin Jefferson or Judy this week? I know Jefferson plays. Let's see what the matchups are.
He plays the Bears on Monday night.
Oh, that's right.
And then Judy plays the Raiders.
The Raiders.
Where are we looking at on your ranks with these two guys?
Oh, it's Jerry Jeudy for me. I have Justin Jefferson pretty low. I have I'm pulling it up. I have Jefferson at 36, and I have Jerry Jeudy up at 19.
Nice.
Jerry Jeudy coming in, we knew how great of a route runner he was, and he just continues to show that. And his volume has been on the up and up each week now as of late. Justin Jefferson has been struggling as of late because they've been running the ball so much and so effectively with Dalvin Cook. And also the Bears are just a super hard matchup. Third fewest fantasy points, fewest touchdowns allowed to receivers. So I'm going to go with Jeudy here.
Yeah, and I love the Randy Moss move he pulled where he was looking like he was going and then pulled. Man, that was beautiful. You love seeing that stuff. Dan, who you going with?
It's Jeudy. I think that Jeudy is really building up a rapport with Locke, and I just don't like the matchup for Jefferson. And that passing game in Minnesota is just garbage, to be honest. Yeah. So I really think that it's Jeudy pretty clearly.
Yep. And we had a bunch of questions, so I'm going to run through. Yeah, you guys said everything. I agree, Jeudy, on that one. We got another question from Derek from Twitter. Wilkins, Taylor, Moss, or Melvin Gordon, half-point PPR?
So 4 backs who are in a complete murky situation right now?
2 of them in the same one?
Those 2 are just – I'm staying away from – I would go with Melvin Gordon. I like Zach Moss too, but I think Melvin Gordon's upside is higher because – he's still seeing like 60% of the snaps as of late, and I think the goal line work is him and Moss. We know I think could feel comfortable in them getting it, but I think Devin Singletary is a little bit of a bigger threat than Phillip Lindsey.
That's coming from a Bills fan too, so you know that if Moss was the call, he'd be going with him. So, what do you think, Dan? Yeah, I'm going Melvin Gordon as well on that.
So I'm going to be the Bills fan right now and pick Moss. I think that I agree with Melvin Gordon. It probably has, maybe a tad more upside. I just think that Moss is going to get more of the work, and as long as my fantasy savior Josh Allen doesn't vulture too many goal line touchdowns, then Moss should get like a touchdown or two with that matchup. I mean, it's really a toss up between Gordon or Moss, but I would lean towards Moss.
Got a question from our guy Marty. What's up, Marty? He's got needs 2 for PPR: Hamler, Renfro, Reynolds, or Hasty. Man, that's ugly, Marty. You could do better than that, man. Come on.
Is this our boy Marty?
Yeah, this is Marty. Beamer cleaner Marty, Mr. Canada.
Mr. Canada. We used to play "Oh Canada" when he would call in.
Yeah, I remember that. Everybody, stand up, and we co-own a team together, and we named it the Cam.
I hope it's not this one.
No, thankfully. I don't think so. Let me look at it. No, we don't have Hasty, so we're good. Oh, that's pretty ugly, though.
This is the question.
Hamler sticks out to me. I'm definitely going to go with him. It's between the other guys for me. I would probably lean Renfro just because he seems to, even with Nelson Aguilar, of all people, seem to become the wide receiver 1 in that offense. How's that feel, Dan, to hear that Nelson Aguilar is successful?
Nelson Aguilar is that right there. Could have done Philly, you fucking bum.
Hey, help me still.
What?
Did he help Philly, though?
He helped win a Super Bowl.
He did help.
I'm just going to go Renfro. Just the matchup. I think a lot of points are going to be scored. Denver gives up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And the past 3 games, he's still got 13 targets total. So, I still think Renfro can do something, especially PPR. So I don't like it, but I would go Hamler and Renfro.
I would go Hamler.
Let's take Florio.
Oh, all right.
Dan. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to take Hamler. I agree with you there, but I'm going to take Reynolds. I think Kupp showed up on the injury report, and we were just a couple minutes ago touting how truly atrocious Seattle's defense is. So I think with Goff chucking it around everywhere, if Kupp is limited at all, then Reynolds is probably going to take that spot. So he should be in for a couple of quality targets.
I was unaware of that. What do you think, Mike?
I think Hamler sticks out as well. I agree. And then I think it depends on Kupp, right? Like if Kupp is out, you go Reynolds. But if Kupp is playing, and we'll know by Sunday, if he's going to play or not. I was leaning towards Hasty and just going to go all of us with someone different for the second option. But then I realized he was playing the Saints and their run D, and he's looked bad in good matchups. So I don't want to trust him in a bad matchup. So I would take the safe floor then there in Hunter Renfro.
Yeah, it's like Breida a couple years ago. Every time you want to start him, he looks like crap. And then every time you shouldn't start him, that's when he goes off. We got a question from Jose. D-Hop or Kirk? Really?
I love that this is
Come on, man. Come on. D-Hop.
I'm not even going to answer the question.
It's D-Hop. But Kirk has been outproducing him in 3 straight games.
Yep, and that's a perfect example of right process, wrong result. You start DeAndre Hopkins no matter what.
Yeah, you're going to sit D-Hop and he's going to score 40 points.
Right, exactly.
That's what I say.
I understand the frustration. I know how aggravating it is to see Kirk go off and you see DeAndre Hopkins, who I think is the best wide receiver in the league. All things equal, I just love DeAndre Hopkins. I always have. You start Hopkins no matter what.
I say start them both.
There you go. That works too. That is a situation where I would like to start both. Matthew Stafford or Ryan Tannehill. Dan, we'll go with you first on this one.
I'll do Tannehill.
Stafford's playing Washington, and Tanny's playing the Colts tonight.
I'm going to do Tannehill. I just don't trust Stafford, especially if Galladay isn't playing. Then Tannehill with his full complement of weapons is just a better call there.
Yeah, I just don't trust Stafford, and that's the danger too. Everybody was going off last year where he started off super hot and he was QB5. If you extrapolate his stats across the whole season, he wound up QB3. He You can't do that. Situations change from year to year, from game to game. So you got to be careful when you do stuff like that and use last year's stats to of course you got to take them into consideration, but small sample size, cough, cough, Tyler Higbee. You got to be careful when you do stuff like that. So Tannehill easily for me on this one, even with the tough matchup. What you think, Florio?
So I would also go with Tannehill. I have Matt Stafford outside my top 20 quarterbacks right now. And he's a player that
Where he belongs.
I was excited for heading into the season, but what is he going to give us 16, 18 points each week? He really hasn't shown us a ceiling. And he was flopping in good matchups. So now he's got a tougher one. Washington's defense has been really, I think, underrated this year.
Yep. So glad the Giants won that meaningless game so we didn't get Chase Young in the draft. Typical Giants. I'm sure we'll win 4 or 5 games. Oh, yeah. Daniel Jones has won 5 games. 4 of them has come against the Redskins. So
I did not know that.
Yeah. He's won 5 games, 4 of them against the Redskins, and then his first start against the Buccaneers.
I'm not going to lie. I was really shocked you guys won that game last year. I did not understand why in the world you would do that.
Because Dave Gettleman, that's why.
I hope he stays there forever.
Yeah, and 2, I saw. I hope not. I hope he's gone. I wish we would have went with Louis Riddick, but such is life. And Hawkinson, I saw popped up today on the injury report with a toe injury, and Galladay's battling injury, so Stafford's got his weapons banged up too. You don't want to go in with Quintez Cephas and old Marvin Jones as your top 2 weapons. So
you show some respect to Marvin Jones, sir.
Yeah, the one game where he's on your bench and he goes off for 3 touchdowns, and then the rest of the games you start him and he gets 2 catches for 40 yards. Next question: Taylor, Lindsey, or Damian Harris? Who did the Pats play this week? I forgot. They played the Ravens. Ooh,
no, God no.
I'm gonna go with Taylor in this one. I just think Lindsey, if Lindsey and Harris, you're probably going to get somewhere 8 to 12 points if they wind up with a touchdown. Taylor's probably got the lowest floor out of anybody simply because of the situation that's going on with the 3-headed monster, but he's got the highest ceiling too. So for me, I would take the shot and go Taylor on this one.
I'm throwing out Harris first because he's been limited at practice. He's no guarantee to play this week. Sony Michel could be activated. We have to watch that. And that backfield has just been a murky mess all season. And we're back to full-on Bill Belichick's for fantasy. I have Lindsey ranked higher than Taylor, but this is one of those situations that I got to look at my team. I got to look at my opponent, and I got to kind of figure out what I need. If I need, a safe 10, 12 points and I feel good getting that out of that spot, I'm going Lindsey. But if I'm looking at it and I'm like, I have, a couple of Chiefs on bye or something like that, and I need a home run swing, I'm going with Jonathan Taylor.
Dan, what you think?
In this case, I think I would go with Taylor just because we've been talking about the 3-headed monster all night, which of course means he's probably going to go for 20 fantasy points this week.
Exactly. As soon as everybody's out on him, that's when he's going to have his breakout week. So apparently this is specifically for you, Florio. He doesn't want any input from us on this one. Ibrahim's asking, Corey, should I start Corey Davis? So a very open-ended question on this one.
It would depend on options, but I do have Corey Davis a little bit lower than normal. I was really, before last week, I was starting to buy into Corey Davis. He had 11 fantasy points in every game, 10 targets in 2 straight. So I was like, this guy is clearly a part of the offense that we can trust. Then he had the terrible matchup against the Bears and put up 0 fantasy points. So
that's what Corey
another tough matchup. So I have him a little bit lower. Would depend on options, but probably a week to get away from him.
Yeah, I agree with you on there, even though he doesn't want our opinion. Dan, what you think?
As someone who was a Corey Davis truther for about 6, 7, 8 years, I just don't think with the kind of matchup he's in this week that you can start him.
And Florio, this is up to you. Ray wants to ask you to do a shout out to some guy, so That's up to you if you want to or not.
What's up, Alan? Happy to hear you're a fan. I mean, I love that, and get introduced with Dan and with Jay because they're great fantasy analysts as well.
We'll appreciate that shout out. Got another one for my guy Marty. Ayuk or Rager? I'm going Rager. The only good thing that's happened.
You are. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. The only good thing that's happened with the Giants this year is James Bradbury. He's played great. So I think he's going to go against, as Dan likes to call him, Fogeltron, and not necessarily shut him down, but Rager's going to be left wide open. And I can't remember his name right now, but the other starting cornerback for the Giants last week gave up a perfect passer rating with passes thrown his way. So I think Rager is going to have a breakout game. If you can get him before this game, go get him. I've seen him floating on some waiver wires. See if you can trade for him because I think this is going to be his breakout. We'll go to the resident Eagles fan here. Dan, what you think?
It's Rager. Go Birds.
Yeah,
no, but seriously. No, but I think
analysis.
Is Debo playing this week? I think is he healthy?
Let me look. I'm not sure.
Let me look it up. I think he might be.
While he's looking that up, Florio, what you think?
I'm going with Rager here as well. Before the bye, he had 6 targets in that game where he scored a touchdown. 2 of those targets went for 20 or more air yards, which I love because he's clearly their deep threat now, and they're utilizing his speed. And the Giants have allowed the 7th most completions of 20-plus air yards. So I think that opportunity, they didn't connect on any last time, but I think they will connect this week on them. And we saw, as both of you guys, different sides of the coin, but both of you can attest, for years, we've seen Deshaun Jackson burning this Giants secondary. Jalen Rager, I think, is going to be the second coming of that.
I see Deshaun Jackson has a spot burned in my heart for as many times as he's broken mine. So you're right. There's no denying. As much as I love the Giants, they suck. So it is what it is.
But for actual analysis,
shut up. I don't even know what you have to say. You're smiling and laughing. I wish I could smack you right now. We're going to go to the next question. More fantasy points the rest of the season, Dak Prescott or Mike Williams?
Next question. Come on.
Yeah, that's our guy, B-League. He does another show. That's he got us the first time. It was right when Dak got hurt. He asked us if we wanted Dak or Wentz the rest of the season. So it was pretty good. Yeah, Marty did one league. We're against each other, a dynasty league. He beat the snot out of me. So that's all right, Marty. I'll get you next time. Miles Kendrick from Twitter, 2 PPR spots, wide receiver and a flex, start 2. Corey Davis, Austin Hooper, Cole Beasley, and Rager. So Rager is easy for me there.
Yeah.
Beasley. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Beasley on that one.
Maybe it's because I got burned a little bit by Beasley. I kind of like Austin Hooper here, but let's make it a trifecta. I'll go Beasley.
There you go. I just don't trust Austin Hooper, even though he's getting the target. He's looking better, but Beasley did. Everybody was talking Beasley up. Finally, everybody was buying in, and then it didn't show up last week.
I was about to say Mike's going to get his bill fandom revoked in a second if he doesn't pick a bill once in a while.
He doesn't show his bias, unlike somebody else. Dan,
you agree with me? You picked Rager too.
You still biased.
I was the don't draft Stephon Diggs guy coming into this season. I guess to make up for it, though, I was huge on Josh Allen, but I just did not love Stephon Diggs.
I got Josh Allen in SFBX, man, and he's been just destroying it for me. Everybody was worried about his completion percentage. What'd you say, Dan?
He's a monster. Josh Allen is literally the only good thing I've done in fantasy this year.
That's because you suck. But other than that, we got a question from Jason. Need 2 flex in a PPR. Deontay Johnson, Henderson, Swift, Antonio Brown. Well, I know Dan's going to say no Antonio Brown because
I'm going to force you to take Antonio Brown because of all the times you've been talking him up.
I said to pick him up to trade him. That was my call. Definitely going Johnson. Probably go Swift on this one, even though he's still, for some reason, Detroit wants to give 180-year-old Adrian Peterson just as many carries. Swift can make your day on one play. So for me, it's Johnson and Swift.
This is a So I'm going Deontay Johnson easily. Good matchup against the Bengals. He is, in my opinion, their wide receiver one there. Like, Deontay Johnson doesn't always finish games, but when he does, he finishes with double-digit targets. So it's just awesome. He could get hurt, though. That's the one concern. For the second one, Henderson is banged up in a backfield that has 3 backs and in a tough matchup, so he's out. I'm going to go with Swift, but I actually do like Antonio Brown this week, too.
There you go. Dan's face is turning red. Before he signed, I said you need to pick up Antonio Brown. In case he gets signed, trade him away. It's free money. And Dan disagreed with me completely. And who was right, Dan?
Me, because he did nothing.
No, you can see you see some of the trades that were going on with Antonio Brown.
You're never wrong. Preston Williams, go away. All right, so I'm going to take DJ for this one, and I'm going to go. I'm leaning Swift too. I just don't trust Antonio Brown. I think that he was way overhyped, as I've said before, and he didn't really do much with them passing pretty much 97% of the time last game. If Swift can get even a semblance of the work, then he should be the play this week.
Marty, that's low blow, man. He's trying to get me and Florio going at each other with the wide right call from the Super Bowl. I was only 4 years old when that happened, so I don't remember it. But one of my best friends, like I was telling you, is a Bills fan, so I say wide right to him all the time.
That was in 1990?
Yep.
I wasn't even born yet. My dad is very upset anytime he hears the phrase wide right.
Yeah, I'm sure. I didn't really – how old are you? Don't mind me asking.
I'm 29. I was born in 91, so
okay. All right.
Right in the middle of 4 Super Bowl losses, and it's just carried with me forever.
Yeah, I remember the second, the third, and fourth losses. I don't remember. I wish I remembered I was born a few months before the Giants won their first Super Bowl. My dad went with my uncle. It was a blizzard on Long Island, and my dad went to California with my uncle to go watch the Giants in the Super Bowl. My mom brings up that story many times. And we actually have a serious question for B-League. Concern level for Antonio Gibson's shoulder. I honestly don't know a whole lot about the injury. Florio, I'll go to you on this one.
He was practicing in full today, so that's a good sign. It didn't even get pushed down to like Friday, and it was a concern. I really like Antonio Gibson this week. I think if you have him, you start him.
All right, and that's all the questions in the chat. I appreciate everybody. Keep asking questions. It's what we're here for. We're going to go back to the questions from the show sheet. Let's see. Bench one between Devontae Parker versus the Chargers, Jacoby Myers versus Baltimore, Higgins versus Pittsburgh, Fulgham at the Giants, and Justin Jefferson at Chicago. Florio, what you going to say on this one?
I have Justin Jefferson the lowest because the matchup, because that offense they don't want to pass. They want to run the ball as much as they possibly can. So that's 2 bad recipes right there. I think he's very boom or bust.
Dan, who you benching here?
I'm benching Myers. I think that it was great the way he did last week, but it was against the Jets, and Baltimore isn't the Jets.
Yeah, I'm going to lean Myers as well. And not only that, but Cam hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since week 3. Like, that's just blows my mind. I don't see it being – I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think both teams are going to run the ball a lot. Jefferson definitely hasn't been playing well and has a tough matchup. It'd be a coin toss between those 2 guys for me. I lean Myers just because Kirk Cousins can sling the ball a little bit, even though it's primetime Kirk. He played decent primetime against the Seahawks. Maybe not having fans in the stands is not getting to his head. Did you guys see that video that's floating around of Kirk Cousins singing in high school?
No.
Oh, you got to look. I'll send it to you guys. It's fantastic. Apparently he was like in the Glee Club or something, and he's like rocking a cowboy hat and singing Uptown Girl. And it's fantastic. It's definitely, you need to shoot him up your ranks simply for his singing voice. Marty wants to know, what are our thoughts on Tremaine Pope? Any thoughts?
The last time I made fun of a guy that I didn't know his name was, it ended up being James Robinson. So I'm just going to excuse myself from this conversation.
It looks like Jackson isn't going to play this week. So Pope is sneaky there because Pope was like their pass catching back. I think It took Pope being inactive for Kalen Ballage to be a thing. He's sneaky, but he's not someone that like I'm really trying to start. He's more like I need a running back off the waiver wire to plug in. Oh, Pope is out there. Let me get him and use him as like a Band-Aid.
Yep. We got a question from Steve McLaughlin. Start AB or Evans this week? Pretty easy for me. AB. Even though Dan hates Antonio Brown, Tom Brady loves him, and he's going to force the ball. It was evident against the game against the Saints. He was forcing him the ball. He only finished, his first game in a year. He only finished one target behind Mike Evans, and Evans hasn't done anything with Godwin on the field. In this season, 5 games with Godwin, he's averaging 7.9 PPR points a game. In 4 games without him, he's averaging 20 points a game. So when Godwin's on the field, I want nothing to do with Evans. He's basically touchdown dependent, and as weird as it sounds to say, give me Antonio Brown in 2020 over Mike Evans.
I'm with you. I agree.
Sorry.
I was gonna say Mike Evans last week had, the one more target, but Antonio Brown was their field stretcher. And again, second game in 2 years, really. Yeah. And he still was out there. He was clearly their third wide receiver, playing over 75% of the snaps, but he led the team in air yards share and had 2 targets of 20 or more air yards. The Panthers allow the second most catches of 20 plus air yards this year. So I think that outside of Godwin, right, you're hoping for one of those guys to either score a touchdown or have a long catch. And I like Antonio Brown's chances this week.
Dan,
I want to hear you say it. I want to hear you start Antonio Brown.
Mike Evans.
Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
No, it'll be Mike Evans.
If it was your team and you had to click start Mike Evans over Antonio Brown, you would do it.
Yeah. 100%.
I feel sorry for you.
I know. I feel sorry for me too.
Got another question for my guy Marty. Tyler Boyd or Hollywood Brown? That's got to be Boyd easy for me.
Yeah, Boyd. He's much more consistent.
The Steelers also struggle against slot receivers, so Tyler Boyd for me.
As much as I love Hollywood Brown, he's just not doing it, and Lamar Jackson can't hit him when he is wide open. Yeah, exactly. I got a question from Jason Nestor on Facebook. Need 2, Mike Williams, T. Higgins, Marquise Brown, and Rager. Definitely going Rager. And then not going to be Brown for me. Be between Higgins and Mike Williams. I know Mike Williams got banged up at the end of the game last week. Does he have any issues? I haven't seen anything. It's probably going to be Higgins for me, though. He's been consistent. Even as the number 2, number 3 option, he's played well this season. So for me, I'm going to go Rager and Higgins. What do you think, Dan? We'll go with you.
I'm going to agree. I really like how Higgins has progressed throughout the year. I think he's developed a really strong rapport with Joe Burrow. And I think Mike Williams just is too hit or miss for me. And so is Marquise Brown, and Williams is dealing with that injury. And, as much as you call me a homer, I think that Rager has a really good matchup this week.
You start Rager. Yeah,
against your trash can of a team.
Yeah, I fully admit it. They are a trash can of a team. I hope that dumpster fire burns and we get rid of Gettleman. That's my hope. So, and T. Higgins has scored double-digit points in every week since week 3, so he's definitely consistent as well. What you think, Florio?
For me, like Brown is the easy sit. Higgins is the easy start. It came down to the other 2. I actually have a slight lean towards Mike Williams, though. I just love what he's been able to do with Justin Herbert, and I think Herbert is finally the right quarterback fit for him, a quarterback that's not afraid to air the ball out and throw it downfield and give him opportunities, because he is one of the best, like, at the point catch, like, receivers in the NFL. So I'm going with Mike Williams, but it's close between those 2.
I still don't. It looks like every time he catches the ball and goes down, he looks like he goes down so hard. Like I saw somebody say on Twitter, every time he catches the ball, it looks like he's getting chokeslammed by the Undertaker. And that's the perfect description, because that's what it looks like. Yeah, I love Mike Williams too. I can't really, can't argue with any 2 of those. Let's see. So where are we going to go? We're all out of questions. We'll touch on 1 or 2 things. We've gotten so many questions. We really don't have a whole lot of time left, but that's what we're here for. That's what we want. I appreciate everybody that's been tuning in and asking questions. So we'll skim through these pretty quickly. Which Tampa Bay wide receiver do you want the rest of the season? Dan, I know you want Antonio Brown, but let's hear what you have to say.
No, I want Chris Godwin. I think that when he's healthy, he's definitely the more consistent out of him and Evans, and Brady likes to look in his direction. It'll be interesting to see though how Godwin does when he's healthy with AB there. It'll be an interesting dynamic to look forward to.
And since we got not that much time left, I'm gonna hit you quick. I agree, Godwin for me. What you think, Florio?
Godwin as well.
Is there any hope for DJ Moore? Florio,
No.
I'll start with you on this one.
I think he's just purely a boomer bust option each week. Like he is 5 games of his 9 played with fewer than 10 fantasy points. So there's no floor there, but he has some nice games. It's just a matter of, what you're getting out of him. You could get, very few fantasy points, or you could get 20 plus.
Yeah. And I was not one of those, I've had my good calls and bad calls, but everybody was propping him into wide receiver 1 territory this offseason, and I just didn't see it. This week he played 97% of snaps and got 3 targets. So that says it all there. Like you said, boom bust. A borderline wide receiver too. It's got the ceiling, but it's got the rock bottom floor as well. Do you guys think that Le'Veon Bell is a drop? Florio, we'll start with you on this one.
Unless you have CEH, because now we're getting the buys starting to be behind us, and handcuffs are more valuable now. I think so. Like I tweeted it out the other day. Other than blind hope, why can we not drop Le'Veon Bell? Like he hasn't looked good on a football field since 2017.
Yep. And you took the words right out of my mouth. This is the time of the year you're getting past where you have to, stash guys that you're going to need to start in bye weeks. You want to have your specific running backs handcuffs. And if you've got an empty bench spot at the end, and you can stash a handcuff, he's got the upside only if CEH were to get hurt. And it's not the upside of Le'Veon Bell from 2017. It's simply because he's in that offense. So you can easily drop him if you want to stash a handcuff, whether it's you having CEH or just throw somebody at the end, the lottery ticket at the end of your bench. Then I don't mind hanging on to him, but he's not a must hold.
I agree. I think the only time you would have him on your roster is if you have a J level of injury on your fantasy squad.
Yeah, Florio, for a little context, in my home league, won the championship last year. Due to injury, I am already eliminated from the playoffs because I had Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Miles Sanders, George Kittle, and
wow.
Yeah, Paris Campbell as well. So
that is a team that you were easily the favorite to win it all, and coming into the season.
I thought I was going back to back. I really did, and I had Lamar Jackson too. So
ouch.
Him taking a step back is just it's been a brutal season. So thanks for the salt in the wound, Dan.
Anytime, man.
Appreciate that. But just remember, you're still an Eagles fan, so we'll skip those and we'll jump into Dan's rookie risers and fallers. We'll just touch on these really quick. We've talked about them a few times. What do you have to say about Rager, Florio? You think he's on the way up?
Yeah, he was getting more usage before the bye. I like that they're using him down the field, and the Eagles have a really, really good schedule upcoming. So I like Rager a lot.
Dan, what you think about KJ Hamler?
I like him a lot as well. I think that he's starting to grow into his role. He's getting healthy at the right time. He's developing a good connection with his quarterback, and with Sutton hurt and Fant in and out of the lineup, he's pretty much the number 2 guy in that offense right now. So I think he'd be really good the rest of the year.
Yeah. And then the other riser you had in your article, Tua. I mean, what is there left to say about Tua? He looked fantastic.
Tua time. That's what time it is.
Finally Tua time. And as much as everybody was like, what the heck are they doing throwing him in there at this point? It might have been the right call. He led it. I don't think Fitzpatrick would have won that game. He can sling the ball, but what else is left to say about Tua? I think he's, for the rest of the season, the super flex. He's somebody you can feel pretty comfortable starting as a QB2. Will flirt with some QB1 weeks. He's going to be volatile. He's going to have some big games, but he's still a rookie who's been hit a handful of times since his devastating hip injury. So definitely think there's going to be some ups and downs, but Tua is just looking fantastic. And for fallers, we'll since he's so near and dear to your heart, Florio, we'll go with Jonathan Taylor. What you got to say about him?
I mean, you all have eyes and ears and can see what has been happening in Indianapolis. This is a player that I thought was going to win people leagues. And now 2 weeks later, I'm saying, I don't know how you can start this guy right now. I wouldn't want to have it. Like, I have teams that he is on and I'm benching him. And
I can see the pain in your eyes.
The sadness.
Dan, who you got for a faller here?
I got Ruggs. I think he was drafted really high. Everyone expected him to be the next Deshaun Jackson. Everyone was tuning into his 40 time to see if he would break the record, and he's had 3 catches the past 3 games. He's literally a non-factor.
Nelson Aguilar, how's that feel?
It feels great because he won us a Super Bowl.
Yeah, won you a Super Bowl-ish.
He helped.
And Joshua Kelly, all I have to say is he got outplayed by Kalen Ballage when he played less snaps. What more do you need to know that the guy's fallen off? The way he looked the first 2 weeks, I was really excited. I had him in a couple places, and when Eckler went down, I really thought he was, not going to be a superstar by any means, but I thought he'd be a solid running back too, and he just hasn't done it. We're going to jump to our call our shot. Florio, Dan and I have a season-long bet going where, unfortunately, he's leading right now. I got screwed last week because I had Justin Jackson as an RB1, which if Kalen Ballage finishes an RB1, Justin Jackson would have. But it's here nor there. Whoever finishes with more right calls gets to design the Twitter avatar for the other guy, and he has to keep it through the rest of the playoffs. So we'll go with you first. What is your bold call for this week?
We spoke about him a little bit, but my bold call is Antonio Gibson finishes as a top 5 fantasy running back this week. Last week, I know it was the J.D. McKissick show, but this is a game against the Lions that they allow the most fantasy points per game to running backs, and I don't expect them to be trailing. I actually think this is a game that they could play with the lead and then rely on their run game and defense, and that's not going to be J.D. McKissick running the ball. It's going to be all Antonio Gibson.
I can see that happening. Dan, what do you got for yours?
I think we talked about him a lot today.
Homer, what a surprise.
That's right. he's going against some no-name at corner. Bradbury, who's a really good corner, like you said before, is probably going to match up against Fulgham, on both sides of the field. So I think he's going to really deliver this week. Also, by the way, for the audience, what's the record now? How much?
3-1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it would have been 3-2 if Justin Jackson didn't hit on the second play of the game last week. But such is life. And so you hit yours last week. It was Irvin getting 10 PPR points. And our boy Chris Meaney hit his as well. He said Drew Lock as a top 8 fantasy quarterback, and he finished as QB4. So Chris Meaney, I know you know him very well, Florio. He was right as well.
Knowing the guy that's been here 1 week is the same score that you did. You've been here all the weeks.
You know what, Dan? Shut up. My pick this week is going to be Gesicki getting 15-plus PPR points. I think that he's finally going to come through with Preston Williams going down. It's a good matchup. I think he's going to catch a touchdown and get enough catches to push him. I think it's going to be maybe 15.1. I don't think that he's going to have a huge game, but I really like the fact that who they playing again? Who was it? The Raiders? No. Who are they playing? Who's Dolphins playing this week? Well, whoever they're playing, I can't find it right now. They've given up 5.
The Chargers.
Chargers. They've given up 5 touchdowns to opposing tight ends in 5 straight games. So I definitely think there's a good chance of that happening this week. So we're going to wrap things up here. We got 2 questions left. First off, Mike, I appreciate you coming on. What we do is we have our guests come with something that the fantasy community might not know about them, just to get a little bit behind the curtain. So what do you have for us that everybody might not know about you?
I don't think a lot of people know that I think peanut butter is the absolute worst food in the world, and I think it is.
All right, well, that's enough. I appreciate you coming on tonight.
I once lost a bet and had to eat a peanut butter sandwich on air, and that was the only time I've eaten a peanut butter sandwich in like the last 25 years of my life.
How do you not love? I love peanut butter, man. I could eat peanut butter out of a jar. I just
my fiance can too, and just the smell of it alone.
She mess with you and like eat some, and then go to give you a kiss and
like
mess with
there's been times where like she'll eat like a Reese's, and then I'll like be like, no, you had like a Reese's or something. Like
Go brush your teeth.
I hate peanut butter that much.
You know what? It's weird. Like you're like the fourth person I've seen recently. Like I don't know if I've ever seen anybody that hates peanut butter, and then all of a sudden everybody's against it. So and then we have the question that divides all of sports. Dan and I both agree that Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. Florio, I think I got a feeling where you're going with this.
So I have this, right?
Jordan or LeBron James?
I got this.
Nice.
Get this out of here. Well, it's LeBron all day. I'm kind of at the point where I will admit that Jordan's run is the best ever and no one's ever going to top it. But LeBron James has been the best player in basketball for 15 years. I mean, it's unheard of dominance. He's going to rewrite every single record book. And I think we're all treating LeBron like these are his golden years. He's going to be the Tom Brady of the NBA. I have no doubts.
Okay. Well, after we started 7 straight for Jordan, we are now 3 straight for LeBron. So LeBron's creeping back up. So Dan's already updating that for us.
So to recap, hates peanut butter and likes LeBron. Okay.
Yep, that's the last time you're on this show.
Never talking to him.
It was fun having you guys. I'll never be on again.
Never.
Well, again, I really appreciate you hopping on with us. And we got a lot of questions, answering all these questions for us. We didn't quite get to everything, but that's by design. Please keep the questions coming. We send out a tweet from either my account, Dan's account, or the Going for Two Live account. If you're not following that, it's at Going for Two Live. Make sure you do that and keep an eye out on Wednesdays and Thursday afternoons. We send that out. If you want your questions for us to go a little deeper into, we'll throw the tweet out and add it to the bottom of that. Mike, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Michael F. Florio. There's a little F in there, so there's 2 Fs, Michael F. Florio.
Dan, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter at EagleDanFF. I also write a weekly column, which I still have to write this week. My rookies to own for the week.
Yep, and you can find me on Twitter at GBenJ. I got a 10 things to know about this week coming out tomorrow, as well as a start sit with Sleeper Wire. I write for both Sleeper Wire and goingfor2.com. And one thing I like to end every show with, if you have anybody that's playing tonight, get them out of your flex. Put them in their position to leave yourself that flexibility in case there's, especially this season with COVID, that flexibility is even more important. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Next week, we have the wonderful Cooter Doodle from Twitter. She is absolutely hilarious. She's making her podcast debut, I believe, with us next week. And then we've got some great guests coming up the rest of the year. So thanks again, everybody, and good luck in your matchups.